What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Comment Riders. We are here. We're going to talk about Kamen Rider Gotchard episode 34 on the podcast today. I'm your host, Josh Meek, the Uber Geek, and I'm joined, as always, by my intrepid co-star, Toby Tobes. How's it going, Toby?
Hey, it's me, the other guy.
Hey, the other guy. Toby, I want to talk about Ric Flair
guy.
with you. Because
real quick, it's funny you mentioned that because I was going back and forth in my brain of do we make yet another wrestling joke to start one of these off? And I was gonna ask you your name and be like, we're like Josh Dickhead. But that's a joke. That's a joke that only you laugh and you get that joke. And I feel like that's not funny to anybody else, but that's also the way this podcast works.
So slight tangent on that. Last night, at some point, my wife made a joke to me and I laughed. And then she texted the same joke to her family group chat and got no reaction. And I was like, you learned a hard lesson today. The thing that pops Josh does not pop other people. You need to think about your audience. So that's exactly this. The thing that pops Josh is not going to work for the mass audience here.
The unwritten rule in the house here is hit me with the joke once, and whatever my reaction is, it's never going to get any better. So there's been times where bad puns are repeated to me, and every time they get repeated, I always laugh and say, "This gets worse and worse every time." I'm a flash of brilliance. You gotta catch me in the right mood, hit me with the funny, and just never mention it again. I'll reflect fondly upon that joke, but you can't go to the well more than once.
Remember the good times when you told me that joke for the first time.
Except second time was not as good.
So I was thinking about it. I think the people, I think anytime that I tell people about wrestling stories, it's always just crazy and interesting enough that even if they don't watch wrestling, they're really interested in the story of it. And I think this is one of them. So I want to talk about the Ric Flair thing that's been going on.
I want you to know before you start, that sounds like the classy way of saying, I don't care if people are actually interested or not. I think they're interested by the way I word it, so I'm just going to say it anyway.
Really, the real answer is I want to talk about it with you, and I don't really care if people care or not. But to catch everyone up, if you're not interested, if you're not a wrestling person, Ric Flair is a classic wrestler from the 70s, 80s. He's about 97 now or something. The dude's 150. He looks like the Crypt Keeper. He's been drinking heavily for 90%
all
of his
90
life.
of those years.
Exactly. And this is he's Ric Flair, the Nature Boy. He goes, woo! That's his thing in wrestling and in his promos. And historically, all of his promos are always he dresses really fancy, and his thing is I'm the kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limousine riding,
styling profiling.
Yeah, styling profiling, and I'm having a hard time holding these alligators down. He's that guy. He's the over the top, just extravagant before that was a rapper thing, basically.
He's Magic Mountain, the oldest ride, but the longest line.
Yeah, and he's often very sexual in a way that just doesn't really fly in today's day and age. So that's who Ric Flair is. And he's it was very popular in his time, and now he's mostly just this sad sack who still gets trotted out for wrestling sometimes because people like going, woo!
I do like going woo, and my friends and I, at least one of my friends, used to give each other the Ric Flair chest chops and yell woo because it's funny. Yep. And before we finish the story about Ric Flair, the wrestler, you might also recognize Ric Flair as a 90-year-old man selling you either dick pills, chicken wings, repairing your car windshield, energy drinks with what's the stuff that was Last of Us? What is the zombie fungus thing called? Cordyceps.
Yeah.
Ric Flair's energy drink has cordyceps, which it's apparently a very high dose. It could kill you. He also has been on rap songs.
Yeah, he was. That's right.
So you might know Ric Flair from one of these other very, very lucrative ventures he's gone on past wrestling.
Yeah, because Rick apparently is a guy who blew a lot of his money, and he's been divorced, I think 7 or 8 times or something insane like that. So I think he's had to give a lot of his money to settlements and things. So he does some questionable endorsements now to make some cash.
That was a real glass half empty statement, by the way. You should have been He was married 8 times, but instead you want the negative. Instead, he was divorced 8
That's
times.
fair. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I was negative about Ric Flair. So, Toby, the other day, Ric Flair tweets out one of my favorite tweets in recent memory. And if it stopped just here, the tweet, I would have enjoyed this story. But it gets even better past the tweet. Rick tweeted, here's the dramatic reading. I spent $1,500 at Paisano's stone-fired pizza to be disrespected more than I ever have in my entire life. After
Woo!
taking 20 pictures with customers and staff, I was asked to leave because of an issue I had with the kitchen manager taking too long in the bathroom. I would highly recommend that anyone who wants to enjoy a relaxing time in Gainesville at a nice restaurant to never visit this place. Woo!
I knew it was gonna be in there. I miss the days when tweets were 140 characters and not this long rambling of a madman.
Also, just to paint the word picture, for some godforsaken reason, I have no idea why. Rick tweets where every single word is a capital first letter. I don't know why, but it makes his tweets look insane. Um, so just picture that while you're saying this. He tags the restaurant and he's trying to do the thing that people do where they throw their clout around to like make a business, behave in a certain way. So I see that tweet and I think, boy, it'd be great if there was video from this altercation in this restaurant. And lo and behold, Toby, today the video surfaces. Someone recorded basically the entirety of Ric Flair getting thrown out of this restaurant. And go seek it out. That's really what I need to say to people because I watched this thing probably 4 or 5 times, and each time I had a new favorite line that came out of it. So I just want to talk about a few of them right now. One, Ric Flair is so drunk, he's slurring so much you can barely understand him. So the captions, the auto captions that happen on like TikTok and stuff are completely wrong for everything Rick says, which is very funny. Um, he asks the manager his name. He says, "What's your name?" And the guy says like, "I'm like Nicholas." He's like, "Nicholas what? Nicholas whatever." He's like, "Nicholas dipshit." which you and I were talking about is one of the funniest like setups and punch downs that you could do. Like it's like not a joke, but it's such not a joke that it wraps around to being hilarious for me. And then later in the same video, he says, the guy says he's trying to get the manager to come outside and fight him. So he's like, step outside with me. And the manager says, I can't, I'm on the clock. And Rick says, the pussy clock. What does that mean, Toby? What does it mean to be on the pussy clock?
I guess it means, he's just having a bad day. And he's
I laughed so hard though at that video over and over again. It felt like internet Christmas because I wanted it so bad to be real, and then it was real, and it was better than I could have ever hoped for. He also, as you pointed out, which I really loved, he uses some like wrestling terminology in the video where he's like trying to keep from getting kicked out. He was like, "I came here, I spent my money, I put this place over."
Yeah, so putting in the wrestling jargon, putting someone over means like, hey, I'm gonna lose this fake sport so you can win, so you look better.
Yeah.
And it's verbalized as like, I'm doing you a favor. I'm helping you become one with the crowd or become popular with the crowd, blah blah blah. So he's definitely of the generation of the old wrestlers who don't know how to not be a wrestler anymore.
No, he can't uncarny.
Yes, there you go. That's a perfect way of putting it.
Yeah, he just cannot turn it off. I like to bust out the wrestling terminology in inappropriate times because it's funny. But Ric Flair getting kicked out of a pizza chain and saying, "Guys, I tried to put you over," is the saddest thing. Uh,
You can
also,
tell how much Josh loved this, by the way. I want
yeah,
you can all hear in Josh's voice. He's very excited about this.
my tweets to Toby, or my messages to Toby about this were just like, "This is the greatest day that's ever happened." Also, to top all this off, Rick decided to put this Paisano's stone-fired pizza place on blast by linking their Twitter account. They haven't tweeted since September 23rd, 2021. It's
Well,
been years since they've tweeted, and they have 365 followers.
that clout, man. That's one of those things that were like, I'm not gonna say I'm better than that. There's times where you like, not necessarily just like a business or like going at the business of like, you know how like sometimes you act stupid and like yell at people on Twitter and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's one of those things where like you tweet at somebody, you're like, oh, so and so, you're cool. What's going on with this? Blah blah blah. And then like you tweet at them first because instinct tells you like, oh, this is the person. I'm just gonna tweet at them. And you just happen to like look at their account down the road or like later and you're like, they didn't respond, this kind of sucks. And you look and they have like 6 followers, like their last tweet was a picture of their grand opening like 7 years ago, and you're like, oh, okay, so you had Twitter, you never actually used Twitter, like
Yeah.
management made you sign up for this and that was the end of it.
Or you fired the social media guy like 4 or 5 years ago and then never hired a new one and just sat
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Yeah. Um, yeah. What a great day for Ric Flair. Have you ever done the like tweet at a business in order to like get something from it or to like correct a way that you were treated?
I've yelled at many businesses.
Has it ever worked?
um Define worked, I guess.
Have you ever like had a decision reversed? Have you ever gotten additional special treatment because of you were angry on Twitter specifically? Has an account ever asked to follow you or asked you to follow them so they could DM you and like fix things? Has anything like that ever happened?
My internet provider has a couple times, as well
Okay.
as some gambling websites, but that's more like just to do like the normal customer service of like, oh, you can't sign in, oh, you can't do this. My most notable ones though. So my favorite shitty food chain is Buffalo Wild Wings. They are supposed to be a sports bar that sells kind of cheap, crappy wings, but that's where me and my friends go a bunch of times. And one time we went for football playoffs. So of all the sports that America should know, slash a sports bar should understand what it is, would be like football playoff time. Like it's a
Yep.
big deal. Like everyone goes. So me and my friends went the one night to Buffalo Wild Wings for the two football games, one at 3 o'clock, one at 6 o'clock. Uh, at 3 o'clock, we told the person, "Can you put football on?" And they were like, "Why? Football's not even on." And we were like, "It's the playoffs. Football is definitely on." And she kind of rolled her eyes and walked away. So,
Amazing.
so she turned it on, and then I was real mad, and I was like, that when I went to Wild Wings Twitter for, because I was very irritated with that situation. Let me try to find the tweet here.
As you're hunting for that, I'll tell my one story where I tweeted at a business. Um, I think it's on like an old Twitter account too. So I don't think I can go back and really find it. But I'd bought a camera and like it was like kind of expensive for what I was doing or what I had it for. So like it was like a camcorder camera. Um, and it was like a big purchase for me and it broke, just stopped working. So I like sent it in. If I remember right, I like sent it in to get it fixed. With the like official Panasonic or whatever it was, the place. And then they just like stopped responding to me. Just like it was just like radio silence. And I didn't know what was going on with the like very expensive item that I'd sent away. So finally, after like not hearing from them for a long time, I got angry and I tweeted about it and tweeted specifically at the like repair place. And then literally that same day, like the manager of that like repair factory, whatever it is, called me on the phone because he had my phone number from me sending the thing in. So he'd like paired up my name on Twitter with my name in their system, figured out who I was, called me and offered me like a way better camera than what I'd sent in uh as like compensation because it had taken so long. And I was like, holy crap, this worked. Couldn't believe it actually worked. And I was like, "Yeah, okay, that sounds great. Yeah, that sounds good." And then I think he asked me to take the tweet down even, if I remember correctly. It was like, "Okay, yeah, great. So if that, is a good resolution for you, if you'd go ahead and delete the tweet." So, like, they were so worried about me and my, like, 300 followers apparently.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
I'm sure there's a bunch of nonsense like that. Like,
yeah.
I know I've probably done it before because there's times I've been real mad, and that's been the solution for me. Like,
Just go scream at Twitter about it for a while.
yeah, I don't even know why. Like, I think I
It
yelled
feels
at.
good. Yeah.
It does. Well, like, yeah, it's like screaming at the clouds, and you just hope someone's listening.
Uh-huh.
Like I think I screamed at. Not, I probably wasn't screamed at, but I think I complained to even like Victoria's Secret Twitter once to help a friend out, and like that actually worked. And whatever we were trying to fix got fixed. Here
Nice.
we go. So January 11th, 2020. At Buffalo Wild Wings for the Minnesota versus San Francisco game. Asked the waitress to turn the game on. Response was, football? What? Wild Wings replied with a facepalm emoji.
Good, good.
And then hours later, for the second time tonight at Buffalo Wild Wings, someone turns the playoffs off. We asked the guy to turn football back on. He says, football? Which game? And I put, I don't know, dude, probably the damn playoffs. And then Buffalo Wild Wings again, facepalmed. But like the second tweet, I was definitely, the first one I was probably just like irritated. Like I thought it was stupid that the sports bar didn't know sports was on. The second one, I can almost guarantee I had a bunch of beers at that point, and that was more just like quiet, seething rage or like
Uh-huh.
irritation of like, this is so fucking stupid. Why is this today?
Like at some point, it's like I'm not gonna fight this person or not gonna like yell at this person in real life, but I can yell at the internet about it, and that's what I'm gonna do.
Well, like I think that's like the best. That's the best option. As like I've had tons of customer service jobs in my life, and I know what it's like to get screamed at. So I
Yeah,
never scream at the actual person when I'm in a store, unless I really have to. I'll call it like, and it's not even yelling. It's more like stern escalation of like, I know I'm right and I know you're wrong.
yeah. That's the most I would ever do. Is like, actually, could you check that for me again? Like that sort of a thing
Yeah,
is
so
like
like,
the hardest I would ever get.
yeah, so like screaming, quote unquote, screaming on Twitter at the corporate account itself is like the best version of this because at that point, like, sure, some interns probably answering that tweet, but like, I'm yelling at like the conglomerate. I'm not yelling
Right.
at the person that's across the room from me, like giving me a dirty look of like, why does he look so irritated right now?
And like in reality, it's like you're yelling at, like you said, an intern, but like that also is like the job that they were hired for is like fielding like a zillion like I'm angry tweets. And for better or worse, like that's probably not a great job, but at least you go in knowing you're getting that instead of like, man, I'm just trying to like be the cashier at this Victoria's Secret. I'm not trying to get yelled at. Yeah. Man, the internet's a wild place. I like that it brings us wonderful things like this, though. It's felt very old school internet today when I was laughing at that video. I also like that Rick just has left that tweet up too. He's like he hasn't been disgraced. He hasn't taken it down. He's just moved on with his life. He's tweeting through it.
Yeah, I don't think he cares.
No,
Like, I think he's too far gone to care. So
yeah,
it's not even a thing.
I don't think so. Yeah, not even a thing. Speaking of not even a thing, Toby, let's jump into our thing for the day, which is talking about Common Rider. First up, we have an email. If you want to send us an email, send those over to cast at commonwritersucks.com. Once again, that is cast at commonwritersucks.com. Link is also down in the description. We have an email this week coming in from Shade. Shade wrote in to give us a whole bunch of information here. Shade says, a long winded explanation for today's gorgeous gotcha. Hello and welcome back. Since I noticed you guys were on break last time, I've also decided to take a small break as well. However, judging from how utterly confused you guys were in the last episode, I'm now realizing that I should have tried to explain all of this sooner, lol. First of all, I wasn't confused, Shade. I think I think Toby and I for the most part knew what was going on. We were just remarking on how crazy over the top like visually stimulating everything was.
It's lots of flashing lights.
Yeah, there's just a lot happening all at once. I think the only part I was like a little confused about was the Common Rider Outsiders guy, where I didn't really understand where he came from because I'd never seen Outsiders. But after looking that up, then I was on board. But I feel like the rest of it, I knew what was happening. It was just a lot. It was a lot of flashing lights and jangling keys for me. Um, Shade says, because despite all this being a lot for newcomers, I actually followed these episodes pretty well. Um, First, Shade gives us some links, some info. So if you're out there looking for the Geets and Gotchard crossover movie that has now been subtitled, Shade says be sure to check it out to finally see Majade's first debut after we've had her now in the series for a while. And Legend has his own theme. We hear it in this episode. It's called Living Legend, so that's out if you want to go listen to that. And there was also a Gotchard live show recently. Shade links a few of the clips from that. And then finally, the Gotchard anime shorts started coming out. I've watched the first one yet that I downloaded, but he links
Have
to a
you
clip.
seen a picture of them as anime characters?
You have?
Oh, I have, but it was
Oh,
have
I?
you seen the picture of them as anime characters?
Yes, yes. It's
Uh,
it's very, it's giving, like, Maple Story for me.
uh,
Um,
we discussed earlier, Sabi and Renge with their cloaks on
uh-huh,
could be like straight out of like a Stardew like or like their own little slice of life anime RPG whatever.
totally, yeah. I'm pulling it up again now just to see their pictures again, and yeah, I definitely see it. You know what this reminds me of? No one's gonna know this reference. Let me see if I can figure out the name.
Am I gonna know
Um,
this reference?
you might know this reference.
Are you gonna tell
Um,
me Gunblade?
no, 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 no. It's much more obscure than that. But you did make me type in Gunblade while that was happening. That's what it was. Linkin Park put out a video game years ago called 8-Bit Rebellion, and the characters in Linkin Park's 8-Bit Rebellion look like kind of like the anime Gotchard characters a little bit.
That
I
this is the worst comparison of all time. This looks nothing like it.
okay.
The
Well,
people in the 8-Bit Rebellion look like River City Ransom
they
characters.
do. You're right. They do. My
What are you
memory
doing?
my memory of the characters of 8-Bit Rebellion look like this, but now that I actually Google and look at the characters, yeah, you're right. They're they're much more River City than this. Okay, I take it all back. That's a weird game though. everyone, everyone should go watch some videos about 8-Bit Rebellion.
Also, the game I was thinking of isn't Gunblade. I'm not gonna be able to find it. There was some. It was before Maple Story, where it was like worms with fancy characters, and they all looked very chibi happy.
Oh, interesting.
I'll probably never find it, but that's
Yeah,
what I
I
was thinking of.
don't know what that one is either. Maple Story though is probably the much closer description of the characters. So I should have just left it at that. It sounded like a smart person. uh, but I like Hopper One in this too. I like the look of Hopper One in the anime.
But
But
yeah, like it's Gunbound was the game that I was
gun
thinking of.
gun bound. Okay,
It's probably
gonna
long retired. It's now a phone game, so it might as well just be shit. But it came out in 2002, so I was in college. It was my favorite thing to do instead of going to school.
yeah. I could see how this could be better than school. Looking at pictures right now, it seems better than school of right now.
Anything could be.
It is very worms. Like 100%, this is just a worms game. That's great. Anywho, back to the email. Jade says, time to answer some questions from last time. Last time you guys noticed that episodes 32 and 33 featured a lot of suit fight scenes. While it is true that Kamen Rider sometimes casts more athletic actors for these roles, the main reason is because these episodes are directed by Koichi Sakamoto. In case you guys don't remember, he's a bit of a legend in the tokusatsu genre for working on many Kamen Rider, Sentai, Ultraman, Power Rangers, and so many other shows. His style of action includes flashy, over the top choreography, explosions, out of suit fight scenes, and using the theme song during a fight scene. In
That
fact,
is definitely a new popular thing in
yep.
these last handful of episodes.
In fact, every episode of Geats that had the theme song playing during the fight scenes were directed by him. Oh, and by the way, you guys also compared these episodes to the X-Aid crossover film you watched that was also directed by him. LOL.
See,
So we're
geniuses.
nailing it. Yeah, look at us.
We've watched so much garbage now that we just know it all.
The writers and the hundred crew transformed into the writers and the hundred crew transformed into are actually not completely random. Glare Eternal and Dark Kiva and Arc 0/1 from this episode are part of a Kamen Rider classification called a Dark Rider. And like all Kamen Rider classifications, this one gets confusing at times. Because back then, there weren't a lot of evil Kamen Riders, and the ones that do exist are either big movie villains or an evil recolor of the main guy, and other small exceptions. But these days, there are so many characters who flip flop between being a good guy and a bad guy so much that this term gets confusing. Just like Glare, for example, he's apparently a Dark Rider, which kind of makes sense since he was an antagonist for a while, but it wasn't evil per se, so it's confusing.
So
So
I
go ahead.
guess so. Is Dark Rider just
Just bad guys.
okay? Because like I went to the fandom page to look it up because I was gonna try to drop some knowledge and sound smart.
Uh-huh,
but
uh-huh.
literally all it does is list every evil character in
Yeah.
every series. So I feel like we kind of lost the like I know what he's saying. I know what they're doing. It just seems like a silly way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it makes sense that they're just turning into evil writers, I guess, basically. Like, they're not picking any of the good guys because that's reserved for Legend, right? He gets to
Yeah.
he gets to be the good guys.
Like for like X8 as the example, anyone who's not one of the four Doctor kids is basically listed as a Dark Rider. Like
Yeah,
Gen M, Paradox, Dan, Cronus, Fuma, blah blah blah. They're all just Dark Riders.
bad guys. Makes sense. Shade says, for you guys, Hodoro defeating Eternal may not be a very big deal, but if you understand what Eternal was activating, you'll realize that what Hodoro did was no small feat. Riders from Double Season use USB memories that contain the Earth's data, all of which are categorized from A to Z. Eternal's final attack uses the strongest memories from each category and is capable of leveling a city. To counter this, Hodoro uses the power of 26 different chemis, which also implies that 26 chemis are more than enough to level a city. That makes sense. That's a lot of chemis. So it's
But you only
quite
need
powerful.
one. You only need one Geats. So what are we really doing here?
That's true. That's true.
The sliding
Uh,
scale is a little slippery today.
I mean, if you're gonna box with God, then my money's on God. That's all. Finally, let's talk about Legend being in the show for a couple episodes in general because what happened here is still very bonkers. I think a part of the reason why they decided to bring Legend into the show is because of the Kyoryuger crossover in King Oger, the previous Sentai. At the time, it was the 10th anniversary, and they made a very bold decision to do a crossover with King Oger series instead of making it a special or a movie. And people freaking loved those episodes, and for good reasons, because even I have to admit those are some of the best crossovers in Sentai history. Ever since then, they seem to be getting slightly more confident with making crossovers in the series. But small spoiler alert: a smaller extent of this is about to happen to Boom Boonger.
It better
Uh,
fucking not.
I won't say who it is or when it's going to happen, but I will be writing a short email about how cool they are when it does. Normally, I'm not a huge fan of doing this, but even I have to admit that they've made so far kind of fire though. So I'm hoping they won't overdo this in the future.
I like this is playful banter. Before I go in here, Josh,
Okay. Yeah.
I find it funny that Shade got out of Gotchard when it was good and has gotten back into Gotchard as it slowly gets worse every
Oh, snap. Gauntlet dropped.
day.
Gloves taken off, slapped across the face, Shade.
But Shade did confirm that like I guess if you're more into it and you understand it better, it's cooler. Because basically, like that email just confirmed like this is made for not me specifically, Toby.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's made for a Toby who has seen the seasons from which the Dark Riders came from, right? Like, if
But I don't even. But
I guess you got Glare and you weren't excited about Glare though, so
that's what I was gonna say. Like I was excited to. I mean, it's the same thing as like the dumb legend transformations. Like
yeah.
Glare was there, and I was like, okay. And then we got the vampire bat guy, and like he at least seems cool. But it's just I'm one of the few people that was vaguely still rooting for Gotchard to be a good show, and then they're just taking that away from me.
For me, the a little bit of the I can transform into an entirely different writer goes a long way. Like, it's fun and interesting when you use it sparingly, but like we've gone to that a lot now. Like, we have an entire season where, we kind of were doing some of that, and like, I don't know, it, I feel like Sentai does it all the time. They've been doing it forever, and now we're doing it over here in Kamen Rider 2. And I just don't need that to be the constant gimmick, I guess. Um,
I will say, if I knew better about the series, I probably would be super into it. Like if it was some video game that I was super into, or like to use the old classic Josh. If there was a moment where like Sora transformed into all of his friends to
yeah.
defeat like Xehanort or something, I'd probably be like, "Wow, this is so awesome!" Blah blah blah. So I'm just, as I said last
You're
week and the week before and this week, as pre promoting my take on this episode again. I just feel like they're not for me right now.
You bring up Kingdom Hearts though. This is basically Kingdom Hearts where they're like, "Hey, here's Gotchard, this thing you like. What if we put these other writers in it too from this other thing you like, and then we mush them together?"
I okay.
It's basically that. You like Final Fantasy, you like Disney. Well, what if Mickey was a sorcerer? And what
Mickey's
if
always been a sorcerer, god damn it.
that's true. That was a bad example.
Alright, you can finish the email now.
Shade
Or
says, but
whatever.
hey, it's just me doing a little theorizing. After all, their explanation for why they're doing a huge crossover in the middle of the series is just we love Kamen Rider and we want to do cool stuff with as much Kamen Rider as we can, and I respect it. As a fellow longtime fan like the producers, I quite enjoyed these episodes. I understand how much this can be for newer fans, but I guarantee that this will be very fun for you guys to look back on because crossovers in Kamen Rider that make you go, "What the fuck?" are always the best ones. So Shade, thank you very much for the email. We have a little late breaking edition here at the bottom.
Wasn't me this
Uh,
time.
Also, hold up. Why did Toby throw some shade towards Kuga last episode there? Please explain your Kuga shade because I don't know if we've ever fully talked about it on the podcast, only in Discord.
So it's really nothing more than giving one of our other Discord members a lot of shit about nothing.
Yeah, they're a big Kuga fan, and you just decided to hate Kuga without really knowing anything about Kuga.
I was given the theme song. So you know me and music. So it was, I think the original thing was tied to it's a good show. Listen to this theme song, and the theme song is not the kind of stuff that I like, as you know. But it was that weird the old ones, like the old songs I don't really like. That was like dun 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 Kuga like that, and I was like, no, this is not for me. And I've raged against it ever since for really no reason. Then when I have friends and I care about them, I bust their balls.
It is all music based because I remember this first happening and it being the theme song. And then you got that like all the Kamen Rider theme song thing and you listen to every Kamen Rider song. And even in that one, basically your review was like, yeah, Kuga sucks still. So you're just very anti the Kuga music. That's what it boils down to. There you go, Shade. That is the behind the scenes on the Kuga hate that Toby brings to the table.
Yeah, it's just fun joshing around, but not with Josh.
Yeah, it's awful joshing around with Josh. Why would anyone do that? All right, that's going to do it for our email section for this week. Once again, if you want to send us in an email, we'd love to hear from you. We will read it on the show, cast@commonwritersucks.com. Once again, cast@commonwritersucks.com.
If I get put on blast one more time about my Kuga hate, I'm going to buy kugasucks.com, and that's going to be our new podcast email. I want everyone to know right now.
I thought it was going to be, if I could put a blast one more time, I'm shutting the email down. Box closed.
It's like when they give the suggestion box at work. When someone
Yep.
suggests like we shouldn't work weekends ever again, or they suggest stupid things, and then the manager goes, "Yeah, that was a mistake. We're getting rid of this today."
Clearly, the problem was the suggestion box itself. This is gone. Toby, let's jump into talking about Gotchard episode 34 here.
Wait,
First of
so
all,
I looked
go
it up.
ahead. Yeah, we're
Uh,
all waiting
I
with
was
bated breath.
the great battle began. What I was told, Kuga's opening theme smokes Geetsa's theme.
Oh, that's just wrong. That's
And
just
then
that's
I
whole cloth
was
wrong.
given the theme. And then my response was, I hate everything about this.
Okay, that you know what? That's
and
fair.
then my quoted text was, "We're gonna hype you for this show with the most mellow of rock power ballads." I would rage at Josh immediately and tell him to turn this shit off.
Listen, I like the Kuga song, but like comparing it to the Geet song, that's just not fair. It's not fair to anybody. You were never gonna come out of that being like, okay, yeah, the song's all right. No,
And then I
no.
found a cover of the Kuga song, then it was better, and then that was a whole different debate. But anyway, let's get back to the show or something.
Indeed. First off, a couple notes from the producer's blog for this episode that I found interesting. You and I had speculated about how long Kaguya and Kamen Rider Legend was going to stick around. Apparently, this Legend arc ends next week. So, like, there's one more episode that'll have Legend in it. And then it sounds like maybe he's going to go away for a while after that. So
So he needs to go away for a while because the
because you're done.
the steamliner is running out of coal here. We're running out of track.
And then legendary legend has the big collar of chemi cards, and it looks ridiculous. Apparently, the inspiration for that collar is the ruffled collar of Elizabeth the First, the Queen of England, former Queen of England.
Ooh.
So that's why legend has that specific collar arrangement. So jumping into the actual show here, Toby, this episode picks up kind of in the middle of the action from the last episode. We are in the battle between Kamen Rider legend Kaguya Quartz himself and the
The vampire
100
bat guy.
bad guy Saigetsu, yes, who is Dark Kiva. So we get our little battle. Kaguya finishes off Dark Kiva, and we kind of start the little plot lines for the episode. So Kaguya is happy to see Hodoro, but Hodoro doesn't recognize who he is, Toby. Despite the fact that, they had a whole little mini series together.
I've never felt so Hodoro in my life.
I really liked my favorite part about this opening bit was that Hodoro has no idea who Kaguya is, but he's like still stoked about it. He was like, "You're so cool, you're so super. I don't know who you are, but you're awesome."
And
That's
that ties in the questions I have as this episode progresses. So when we get there, I'm going to ask you as my reliable source.
okay.
And if you don't know, that's fine. But I'm still
Okay.
going to ask you.
And then we see Saigetsu, he nearly dies. He's like stumbling back through the void. He goes to report back to, I guess, what are the bosses of the 100, and they're just like floating diamonds in the sky.
Yeah, they're like, if it was like Evil Sims diamonds.
Yes.
And
100%. Yeah.
they have like, it looks like little spiders, little red spiders on them or some little red face thing. And they all just talk. And I always love me a good nondescript object boss vibe voice thingy.
Me too. It's a fun vibe, and the way that they light up when they talk feels really old school. Like it feels, I don't know. It feels like Zardoz or something. Feels like an old school 70s sci-fi movie.
like the master computer from Tron. That kind of
Yeah,
vibe.
totally, totally. So the floating diamonds basically call him pathetic and remind him of the consequences, and then basically give him one last chance to get the common legend driver riser, whatever that thing's called. And then we get to see that Saigetsu has the what's the arc driver from Kamen Rider Zero One, and we'll get to see him henshin with that later. Then Toby, Kaguya gets to go meet the crew. He heads back to the alchemy headquarters, and this scene was amazing. I really, really enjoyed this scene. The very first thing he does, we see as the scene opens, is he's given the girls ball gowns, like very elaborate gowns to wear because they need to look fancier when they're around him, apparently.
and
Um,
and Sabi has, I'll call it a game show host jacket on.
sure. Yeah. He's fancied everybody up. He turns to Spanner to be like, "Oh, it's your turn now." And Spanner's like, "No, no, we're not gonna do that."
My favorite part of the dress up, and it's an easy comparison for me, but like there's times in the Yakuza games when you do Cabaret Club where like you pick the outfits of the hostesses you're sitting with and you have to
Uh-huh.
dress them up and makes them happy, and you get hearts and you get achievements and you 100% the games. But like it's just like the goofy outfits that you would randomly pick for the Cabaret Club girls. So I just started laughing. I was like, this is a Yakuza mini game right here. Like everyone gets dressed up and has to go do something stupid.
That's awesome. It really is. Yeah, it totally is. Uh, Kaguya very quickly makes Hodoro remember everything about him using his little fancy goggles, which was I guess was a quick plot point here. We just needed to get to the point where Hodoro remembered him now, but it felt a little cheap. That was the easy way out of that issue.
So my question with that, like, was he just the little VR glasses things? Was it just to refresh his memory, or does Hodoro think like, "Wow, this is a video with me. This is pretty cool. Oh, I guess this is who you are." Like,
I wondered that as well. I don't know the answer to that, but I wondered the exact same thing as I was watching it. Of like, does he just now know that those things happened because he saw them, or did they jog his memory so now he actually remembers them?
Because
It,
he's a
who's to
happy
say?
goofy boy like me. Like if you showed me like VR glasses that played videos, you're like, "Do you remember this?" I'd be like, "Yeah, this is awesome, cool." But like I wouldn't know if that was
Yeah, that's a fair question. Yeah, I don't know. We find out in this scene as well that Kaguya can't return home right now because of the hundreds assault, so that's why he's stuck here for a few episodes. And everybody kind of rushes off to go do their own different thing, including Hodoro. He has an exam that he is running off to. So we're left for a moment here with Spanner, Sabi, and Kaguya, the three of them left behind. And I was like so excited for a brief moment because I thought we were going to have this like weird boys' day out episode or something. I was like, what are we doing? This is an amazing pairing of characters. And then it doesn't actually work out that way. But I was excited for a minute because I love that trio.
Yeah, I think Mr. Gorgeous himself and Spanner hanging out for any extended period of time would have made for like a good slapsticky buddy cop drama thing.
Totally,
Because
yeah.
even like later down the episode, they do flashbacks of them those two vaguely hanging out, and it just seems like a nightmare. So I would have watched more of that.
Yeah, it's a shame that they didn't give them more time together, and they might in the next episode, we'll see, but, like, yeah, it's so perfect, the 2 of them, because they are, polar opposites, and what little they do interact is very funny, this episode. But as I said, Hodoro has an exam that he has to go take, with the real Kajiki, not with Butler. So they're sitting in the classroom, they're working through, and it might be maybe not an exam, it might be like a study thing, I think, or something like that. And they're sort of like kind of talking out loud to themselves, but not really focusing on what's going on in front of them. And then Kaguya comes in and is kind of like introducing himself, sort of, and they don't realize it's him at first, or Hodoro doesn't realize it's him at first, and then freaks out because he's not supposed to be out, he's not supposed to be seen, and he's just sort of wandering around his school, giving zero fucks about the whole thing.
And especially when they're all dressed in like their school uniforms, when you have the flashiest person alive just hanging out, it's
Yeah,
definitely not. You're definitely gonna stick out a little bit.
yeah, quite jarring. This scene was also funny to me because it starts with Kijiki telling Hodoro about the Kamen Rider, and Hodoro at first is like, oh no, he knows. But Kijiki is just being like, so I read this on the dark web. There's rumors of the Kamen Rider. It sounds so cool. So which means that like what, from like last episode to this one, they wiped Kijiki's mind yet again. Like that boy is not going to be all right in the head after this. Like he's been mind wiped so many times.
Yeah, his brain's gonna turn into mush.
Yeah.
I feel like for as much as you test this kind of technology and science, I don't know if they really studied the effects on like doing it to the same person over and over and over.
Yeah, they
More so
can't
than
have.
like oh, it's a random battle in the lovable mountaintops, and those people get blasted once and they never have this problem again. But Kajiki is up to like 5, 6 at this point
At
from
least,
like
yeah, at least.
girlfriend times and friendship times and new common rider times and old common rider times and all the
Poor guy. Sabi shows up and tries to yank uh Kaguya out of the classroom. They end up, I think, on the roof, and then Spanner shows up as well, and we find out this is where we find out that Spanner was chasing him because Kaguya, for some reason, was being interviewed on live TV and very nearly henchioned on TV. So Spanner,
and that's when I decided I wanted those two together.
yeah, one
Like
hundred
he
percent.
because especially because it's just the best pairings are like the no nonsense versus like all nonsense, and that would have been those two. That would have been those two's day.
Absolutely. Um, Kaguya has also amassed a fan club already. They swarm him in this scene. And Spanner says that Kaguya is Hodoro's responsibility. He's handing him off. He's like, you take the puppy for a while.
The dog won't stop pissing and shitting in the house. Someone needs to take him for a walk. Here you go.
We get a brief little scene here next where we get to see the Abyssal sisters talking to the Abyssalus King. This is really like a nothing scene. Basically, they are saying they're reporting on the 100, they're reporting on Kamen Rider Legend, and I don't know, it lasts all of 10 seconds. Basically, it's like, no, the sisters and the king are still there. They still exist. Don't forget about them. I will say that I think the Abyssalisk King guy, I think the costume is very cool looking. I think he looks very creepy. I really like the look of him with his like gold face and stuff.
He definitely looks great. And it's funny you mentioned they had a nothing conversation for that short period of time because I feel like all 22 minutes was a nothing conversation over a longer period of time.
That's fair. That's fair. It yeah, we'll talk about it at the end, my thoughts overall about, like, kind of how they handled the plot for these episodes, mixed in with the Gotchard plot, but, uh, yeah, this was, like, kind of the one point in the thing that, like, was furthering the actual Gotchard plot of what's gonna be going on outside of these legend episodes. But Kaguya and Hodoro are chatting now, and Totoro's telling him like, "Hey, just try not to stand out too much, okay?" And Kaguya says, "For me, gorgeousness is justice." I don't know what that means, but he believes it very strongly. Some of the 100 thugs show up then, and we have a big battle.
Well, right
Basically,
before that battle, I like that Hodoro's comment of "You don't have to be so gorgeous"
yeah,
was like fantastic because obviously, like Hodoro doesn't mean it in a bad way. He's just saying like you don't have to like go full blast kind of thing.
yeah, you can tone it down a little bit, man.
Yeah, but like that's all Legend is. Like he was basically like he distilled him down into his essence, his core, and he was like, yeah, but don't do this though.
It'd feel like if I was like, "Well, just quit being so Toby." If you could just be a little bit less Toby, that'd be great for me. Kaguya is really impressed here at Hodoro's like improved appearance since last you saw him. He says you're more gorgeous than last time. And Kaguya basically takes the Kemi cards from Hodoro and gives Hodoro some new cards where he then henshins and he basically gave him rider cards. So I believe it's the Fies card because he has like the phone on his shoulder. So we get a little bit of a different look there for Gotchard. And Kaguya keeps the Kemi cards that he took from Hodoro. So first he becomes the Build Genius form, and that is a very cool looking form with the like legend necklace kind of over top of the Build Genius form. It's very cool. But in the midst of the fight, Toby, Kaguya uses Hopper One as a bullet.
and that
Basically,
and that was the best part of this episode.
it was pretty good. He loads him up and he shoots him right at the enemies, explodes all the enemies. And of course, Hodoro is like instantly pissed about this. Like, what are you doing?
I want to throw out because I vaguely thought I noticed it when I was watching it. I'm going back and trying to rewatch it. Legend definitely gave him that goddamn Kuga card. That was one of the two that he gave him for the
Okay, I couldn't
riders.
figure out what the other one was. I think it's a Fies card and it must have been the Kuga one in this
Well,
one.
I think Kuga's the top one because I could have swore I heard the name too, and
Okay.
especially because of my long-standing rivalry against Kuga. It's just like when that was the first transform of the last episode. And then he was like, "I'm going to be all the riders."
Yeah.
Kuga was the first
He
one.
was Kuga first, yeah.
Yeah, and then he did it again. So of course it stands out extra, just because again because it's funny to me. But yeah, it's Kuga and Fies or Fate, whatever
Okay.
it
Hodoro is as we said, pissed here. He basically then like tells Kage like, "Don't just grab my friends. Like, don't treat Kemis like they're tools." So he's kind of dressing Kaguya down a little bit, and Kaguya has like none of this. He's like, "If you don't desire gorgeousness, just say so." And he
is.
gets super pissed. He storms off, and
He's
Hodoro is like standing there confused, like, "Shouldn't I be the angry one? Like, what just happened here?"
You stole my shit.
After that, the butler shows up to talk to Hodoro and basically tells him, like, listen, Kaguya is super awkward. He's always alone. He's always lonely. He doesn't know how to interact with people. It's just him fighting the enemy. So the butler kind of convinces Hodoro, like, go talk to him again. Like, we can smooth things over.
Listen, you just stole him to his core earlier, and you stole his core, and he didn't really, it kind of hurt him a little bit.
Yeah,
So
we
maybe
heard
just
him.
maybe still just tell him he's gorgeous. Like you don't have to tell him not to be gorgeous. Just be like, yeah, you're looking pretty good today, and just let it go.
Just give him the compliment. It's fine. It won't hurt you, and he really needs
He'll forgive you like right away. Cause I made this mistake before too. Like you
it.
just tell him, just be like, oh wow, you look fantastic today. Your hair's gorgeous. Oh, your buckle's all shined up, and he'll just get giddy, and it'll be all over.
Kaguya, as he's like wandering away, sulking, he gets confronted by Saigetsu, who is back once again for the attack. This time he has that arc driver I mentioned before. He henshins, I think arc 0 and then an arc 1, I think are the names of those two forms he uses. Um, in this big fight, Kaguya henshins to Decade for a while. He even brings in a Deno assistant writer, or like a ghost rider type of thing for the his final attack ride. So there's two of him for a little bit. And turns out that Saigetsu was just learning his attacks from that first little battle. So now he knows everything
Classic
about
video
him.
games.
Exactly. He can mirror all of his moves. And luckily, just at that point, Hodoro shows up to help. Um, I wrote down here, Kaguya is still a jerk, but Hodoro apologizes. I didn't really feel like Hodoro needed to apologize, but he did here anyway. And basically, the thing that the show tries to explain is that Kaguya was hurt because he was like forgotten about, like that Hodoro had forgotten who he was. Kaguya was hurt by that, and because he's always alone. So him being lonely, that really struck a chord. So he was trying to be extra gorgeous so that he wouldn't be forgotten again.
I think, and at least of that's like the most real human part of this. Of like,
Yeah,
you don't have many friends, and you thought this one person was your friend, and then one day you try to talk to them, and they're like, "No, I really don't like you," or
yeah.
like,
Yeah, because I mean, like they do explain that like the way that his powers work and the Aurora Curtain and all that stuff. Like, yeah, he doesn't have very many actual friends. Um, so yeah, I get where he's coming from on that, and like I get what they were trying to sell on that for sure. The two of them are about to shake hands because they didn't get to last time when Saigetsu shows up once again to fight them. The two of them work together now and basically like obliterate Saigetsu. Um, we get to see a 0-2 henshin here, uh, for Legend, and yeah, we get to revel in all the Kamen Rider 01 suits basically at this point.
another job done.
uh, Saigetsu falls again and goes back to the Diamond guys. They tell him to hand over his life, and they start turning him into dust. And his
They
body
absorb
kind
him
of
into the diamonds.
yeah, his body then kind of melts and he turns into a countdown clock that looks like it has 24 hours counting down. And Kaguya seems a little bothered by this as he kind of like looks off into the distance. And then he tells Hodoro that this is farewell. Seems like he's leaving now all of a sudden.
Because the world's gonna blow up. So he's like, "Fuck it, I'm getting out of here."
Yeah, getting out of this world's doomed. Leaving this guy that I called friend. He's done. So my thoughts on the whole Legend Rider stuff here. I realized when I finished this episode, and as I was taking notes here, I realized the thing that I like the least about it. Because I like Kaguya a lot as a character. I think he's cool. I think I like him more than it sounds like you like him. I think he's a fun foil against like Spanner and stuff like that. I think his suit looks really cool. And like I said, in moderation, I'm okay with the like bringing in past writers as your hench and stuff. But I really hate that we introduced him in this like separate mini series. And then when he gets introduced into the main series, I hate that it's just like we pause the Gotchard story to then do the Legend story. Like he brought his own enemies in. So like suddenly we introduce not just him, but a bunch of enemies that we're gonna fight now for a few episodes. They're clearly gonna go away, and then we're gonna go back to the Abyssalus sisters and all that again. Like I wish Legend instead had come in and like worked with Hodoro against Hodoro's bad guys. Because as it stands right now, it almost feels like we have like a pause on the show while the Legend stuff is happening, which is fine because I'm enjoying seeing Legend do his thing. but it just doesn't feel integrated into the show super well. Is my thoughts.
That's probably a more tactful way to put it than the way I explain it. But I mean, that's pretty much it. Like they they restarted the show like twice now.
Yeah,
This is effectively like third chunk of the season, and I still just think it's so far away from what it was. And now like after the Gold Man died, it just the couple throwaway episodes after that were still charming. Like, hey, we went to visit Renge's grandma, we're having a good time. Like all those are fine as the one offs because the story vaguely still going on in the background. Maybe not a ton of it, but like it was still vaguely there. And every week for the past couple now, it's like we're just dicking around and doing nothing. Like this whole episode was basically uh gorgeous, whatever, just being like, look at me, I can do stuff. And then
yeah.
it just ended. Like it's literally like 20, like of all the times we've joked, like, oh, nothing happened, or it's a setup for the next week, or anything else stupid like that. This whole episode just feels like literally nothing to me.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It feels like this is like a going on a 3 episode arc now if it ends next week, and it definitely feels like one that they could have fit into 2 if they wanted. Like, they definitely have jammed a lot of things into 2 episodes, a lot of story into 2 episodes in the past, and this one felt like is feeling like so far, we'll see what happens next week. Feeling like so far where it's like, well, it was just 3 so you could have him in the show, like, 1 extra week. Um, yeah, which is whatever. I don't know. It feels like ever since the sort of like first kind of like show reboot that they did, which I feel like that one was needed. I think that that one really spruced some things up and reinvigorated the show in a way that it needed to happen. But it feels like since then they just don't have the faith in I don't know if it's these characters or don't have the faith in like the story that they'd set out to tell. Um, so they keep like undermining it or throwing in different things. And like we're kind of to the point in the show where like I really like all the characters and I just really want their story to continue. So
Yeah, like
um
that to me seems like the whole point of all of it. Like
yeah.
the guys invested in, like I was talking to the navigator earlier from our Discord. You know, you can find it at patreon.com/the Kamen Writers or something like that. But like there are so many open-ended arcs or story beats or plots that haven't been touched for weeks, if not months.
Yep.
And we're slowly running out of show now. And we just wasted half a month, almost a month, on literally nothing. Like this isn't making the plot go anywhere. It's just its own little chunk side story. Like the main one I thought of earlier. Like we still know who Hotaro's dad is. And the
Yeah,
first
that's a
couple
huge one.
episodes, that was a big deal. They kept showing pictures of not his face and oh, your father would be proud, blah blah. Uh, Kudo's dad was a clone, died in front of her, said, I'll see you again someday though. And they haven't addressed that or touched that since that moment, which I think was 10 episodes ago, maybe
Yep.
12.
Yep.
Like they have all these huge story, character driven things built up that they don't touch. And they're just wasting it with freaking the guy who can turn into 27 Kamen Riders.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, those are 2 really good examples that like in the first few episodes of this series, like those felt like things that were going to be like the crux of the show. Like these are going to be the questions that we are constantly reminding you of and we're finding new information about and getting closer to the answers, but like we probably won't reveal it all till like towards the end. And yeah, in the case of Hotaro's dad, like it feels to me like they've dropped that intentionally and it's not going to get brought back up again. Like it feels like because they haven't hinted at it for so long that they're just pretending like it didn't ever happen now and they're never going to do it again. And the Kudos dad stuff is just really one of the more embarrassing moments in the show of just like he was just a clone, he's still out there somewhere. And then like you said, not even she's not even like getting a half a second scene where she's like, we still have to go find my dad. Like that's all I need. I need her like just once in a while mentioning it or like looking at a picture of him or something. But it's as if she saw that clone die and she was like, "Well, I'm good. All right, I don't need to know anything else about my dad now. He's okay." Um, so yeah, it's a weird thing, and it's weird because I love I really like the whole interaction with um Kamen Rider Legend and Hodoro and all that stuff. I just feel like it'd be better. I would take it better if we plucked these episodes out and just continued the Legend miniseries longer. Like make those things off in their own show because that's fun and you can do your own thing and you can have all the crazy writers show up and stuff and Hodoro can go off on an adventure. But then like over here, let's answer some of the questions for the show that we're watching. Yeah. It just feels like they should be two separate things.
And they did the parental stuff enough that I distinctly remember one of my old jokes or one of our old conversations on a weekly basis was like, is Hodoro and Ikuto going to have the same dad? Is there a reason they don't keep showing a dad? Like, there was enough of the father stuff in that first chunk where it was actually a discussion point for people that do, podcasts
Yeah.
on Kamen Rider.
Yeah.
And like it's just so far gone. And that's not counting like I'm sure we could do more with Spanner and his fake mom and the sisters figuring out who they want to be, or if they're good people or bad people, and the little sister being extra angry, and like the littlest sister busts on Kudo once a month of like, this is all your fault. I'm doing this because of you. And then she'll pretend like she knows her better than that, and they give each other looks and have comments. Like when like Kudo made the comment about the little one's dad, or asked like how parental was it, like really her father that died, or just like quote
Yeah.
unquote father. And that was a throwaway comment that they haven't touched for 3 weeks. And that
Yep.
seems like a big plot point. Like maybe they have the same dad. Maybe it's Totoro's dad. Who the hell knows? But they're not going to talk about
I think we got very spoiled with Geats because Geats
it.
was very good at doing the opposite of this, where they would set up what feels like a big question that you think might last a long time, and then they'll like answer it the next episode, and they'll set up another big question. And and Gotchard from the very beginning has set up big questions and then just let them simmer. And like at the beginning, they were doing as we were saying, like they were hinting at them, they were bringing them back up again. They weren't answering them, but at least like it felt like they cared still. And now, yeah, like it's just they're not even mentioning them, but it is the polar opposite of the season that we came off of. So it feels extra jarring, I think, because of that.
It's
But
a mess.
it'll be interesting to see how they wrap this show up. And if our tune changes by the end, well, like I wonder if we'll be saying like, "Oh wow, like they brought it all around, they answered the questions, it feels good," or if we end the show and be like, "Yeah, they never did tell us who that goddamn dad was." Because yeah, it could definitely go either way. All right. Well, as Toby mentioned, we do have a Patreon. We'd love for you to check that out. We post a whole bunch of bonus content every single week over there. It's patreon.com/slash the comment writers. We do what we call watch and react, which is like Mystery Science Theater, but for tokusatsu. Right now, we are watching through Boon Boomger every single week, and also working our way through Kamen Rider X-Aid. We're getting close to finishing that up. We'll have to pick our next Kamen Rider series to watch after that. But you get those things every single week, and we've also done a bunch of movies. Then we watch Kamen Rider Black Sun as well. So there's a ton of content. If you sign up now for just $3 a month, you get all that stuff that we've done, which at this point I think is like 80 some videos and stuff like that. So lots to watch and lots to check out. Also, if you go to patreon.com/slash the comment writers and sign up, you get access to the Discord, which we've mentioned a couple times here, which is a fun place to hang out, fun place full of absolute maniacs.
That's
And
where the lore comes from.
it's where the deep lore comes from, and you get to be a part of that lore and create it along with us if you so desire. So once again, patreon.com/slash the comment writers, and link down in the description if you want to find out more. Toby, where can the people find you on the internet?
On Twitter, it's at Life of Tobes, and on YouTube, it's Tobes Plays.
For me, I'm on Twitter at PrettyDeeceJosh. I'm on YouTube at PrettyDeece, and I'm on Blue Sky at meek.lol. So that is going to do it for us for this week for the podcast. We'll be back next time to talk about the finale, apparently, of the Kamen Rider Legend saga here in Gotchard. We hope you join us back to talk about that, see if we're grumpy old men again for that week. But until then, have a great week, everybody. Peace.